Nair Zawi Lama Jawa Tengah Jangan
Pulang，继续的开训马赛。
你路马街人来，几声这比巴耶街上来，三太爷年哈松，咱能先能看啥？再问真几陪你下雨，拉你下雨。我刚前，不米用几帕萨，土长不大拉呢，拉玛开起有你，徐律本大勇气，起来人生给你有。娘的龙的，拉你龙的。许不迷之茶，怕马奔起马街，米龙啊金竹松，大胆见那三米儿。
你们的中文的卡的两个差距有嘞。
拉玛耶耶当街为莫。
Today, Tibetan National Opera and harming like Colorado, Xinjiang, Tibetans, India, Taiwan, Falangaba, Chinese dictator country is releasing coronavirus out of the world. Billions of people lost their lives. The spread out of the world. Now, just 2 years before, world leaders woke up. How is Chinese Communist Party? All leaders.
Who is a close friend of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Please welcome William Pugh.
Of Tibet. I suppose Putin, as he invades Ukraine, has learned some lessons from the Chinese government when they invaded Tibet. When they took away your freedom and took away your identity. But all they took away was the reflection in the water. That's all they took away, because they didn't take away you, they didn't take away His Holiness, they didn't take away your religion, they didn't take away your culture, they didn't take any of that. No matter how hard they tried, they cannot do that, and they will not do that. And because of that, your religion and your culture and your way of living has spread throughout the whole world. In the end, the despots will go. They will be destroyed by their own ego. But the goodness and love of His Holiness and the Tibetan people will live on forever in my children, the children of the people walking up and down here will live on. Your victory is assured. Maybe it will take longer than you think, but it is assured. The people who sacrificed themselves, their victory ultimately is assured, because what you have given the whole world is a gift of peace. All the tyrants can do is give evil and war and destruction. So what I say at this time is we just keep going. Keep going. Hold on to what is true for us for as long as it takes, because ultimately we will win and they will fade away as the water here will dry up. God bless you and thank you. Thank you for inviting me to speak. Thank you.
I would like to acknowledge that we are here today on the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. If there's one thing that the people of Tibet understand, it is the huge injustice that occurs when you are displaced from your own homeland, when you have other people invading and taking away your right to self-determination. And here on this land in Sydney, in Martin Place today, we stand on Solan land. Land that is First Nations land of our Aboriginal people here in this country, that was never ceded and that was stolen by invaders and engaged in genocide here in our own country. And so I wish to acknowledge that this is Aboriginal land, and collectively for all of us to recognise that it is Gadigal land, and show our respect to First Nations people in their struggle for justice and self-determination too. As was said, my name is Jenny Leong. I represent the Green Greens in the New South Wales Parliament, you'll hear later from my colleague Jamie Parker, who also is a Greens representative. The Greens have a long and strong tradition of standing very closely with the people of Tibet, with Tibetans inside Tibet and the Tibetan community across this country and around the world. I know that our first and old leader of the party, Bob Brown, was a good friend of the Dalai Lama's. I know that the Greens have stood in our federal and our state parliaments calling for respect and autonomy for the people of Tibet. And I know that we support a free Tibet, where Tibetans have the right to self-determination. But today is a special day because it marks an anniversary of an uprising. And as the Reverend Phil Cruz said just then, the strength of that uprising 63 years ago sits in the hearts and the minds and the chants and the voices and the flag waving of people here standing in Martin Place today, and of Tibetans around the world, and all of the groups that are standing in solidarity with Tibet, to say that what we need is a recognition of the basic human rights of people inside Tibet. What we need is a recognition for justice and self-determination. What we need is a recognition of the fact that media and other independent sources need to have full and unfettered access inside Tibet to be able to report on what is really happening inside Tibet. Because we know that when any superpower, when any government, whether it be the Chinese government or the United States government or the Australian government, seeks to stop access to human rights defenders, seeks to stop access to independent media and independent journalists, seeks to stop access to other countries and to activists and people on the ground to return back freely and move freely and have communication happen freely. We know that that is when human rights violations happen. We know that that is when they get away with the disgraceful acts that they are currently inflicting on people inside Tibet. And so can I say to you today that the Greens stand with you. We support you. And we know that the struggle for justice, for freedom, and for self-determination of people that are from Tibet and the Tibetan community around the world will continue to grow. And we will stand with you as we grow that movement, because the strength and bravery and courage of that uprising 63 years ago remains and lives in all of you here today. The Tibetan volunteers, the youth community groups that are putting this together, and everyone that is committed to a free Tibet. Please know that we stand with you and will continue to do so in solidarity. Free Tibet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jamie Parker. I'm the Greens Member of Parliament here in the New South Wales Parliament, representing the electorate of Balmain. And I too want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land. This land is the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and I pay my respects to their elders, both past, present and emerging. This land was, is and always will be Aboriginal land. I want to also acknowledge His Holiness the Dalai Lama and thank him for his leadership, his spiritual leadership and his leadership over many, many decades supporting a free Tibet. And most importantly, I want to thank every single one of you here today. You are so important. Your presence here today sends a powerful message to the Australian government, to politicians, to policymakers in Australia, that Australia is not doing enough, that Australia can and must do more. Today, on the 10th of March, we acknowledge this particularly important day. This day when Tibetan people rose up in struggle against the occupation of their lands. And for 63 years, the Tibetan people have not been silenced. But what we know is activities like this, basic human rights, being able to freely assemble, which is a basic human right, is denied for people inside China. Freedom of speech, an opportunity for you to stand here and express your political views or your religious views is almost impossible in China and of course in occupied Tibet. And the challenge for us as a nation, as Australia and the international community is to recognise that human rights should come first. Not trade, not diplomacy, not money and power, but human rights. Because our country picks and chooses which human rights we'll stand up for and in which country. In some countries, like in occupied Tibet, we see the denial of the freedom of speech, the freedom of assembly, arbitrary arrest. We see the occupation of a land illegally, and the Australian government says very little. But in other situations where there's abuse of human rights, the Australian government implements sanctions, will use their military might to take a strong position, as we've seen in places like Afghanistan. But in China, they don't. And why? And why don't they? Because the government prioritises trade and diplomacy and power over defence and support for human rights. But we are seeing some progress. For example, the Chinese Beijing Olympic Games is being diplomatically boycotted by Australia because of human rights issues. That's a small step in the right direction. But what we need is a lot more. We need our governments to speak up when there's human rights abuses and take action no matter what country it's in. And that's why you today being here is so important, because we stand in solidarity with people all over this world, in the United States, all throughout Asian nations, here in Australia, throughout Europe. Today, a global day of action is taking place to commemorate and acknowledge that uprising day. So, as a Member of Parliament from the Australian Greens, we commit ourselves to press even harder for a free Tibet, to call on our governments, and where the Greens are in government around the world, to press to ensure that China recognises that we need freedom in Tibet. We need the ability to express basic human rights, and we need to see a recognition of the cultural and religious practices that Tibetans should have a right to practice freely within a free Tibet. So in conclusion, I just wanted to acknowledge everyone here and say thank you so much for coming. You coming here today is just so important, and it's part of an incredible global movement. I want to wish you all the best in your campaign and commit ourselves, as my colleague Jenny Leong has, a member for Newtown, to continue to support you and ensure that in the future we can rally here when we celebrate real freedom and a freedom of Tibet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's an important day. This day, 63 years ago, men and women of Chinese stood up and fought the Chinese community invaders. Some of them even made their internal secret. Tibet brothers and sisters are still fighting for them freedom today. As a Chinese, I developed a diamond the results, courage, great resolve, and the toughness of champions, brothers and sisters to resist the exchange and occupation of Chinese community region. As a Chinese, I can behind words about the crime accounted by the CCP regions of regions champions. The CCP regions is an evil. Mandarin's reason behind building all tokens and gentles and returns of communists and Han Chinese communists. Our sentence of its students. This branch and common remains has common methods. Crime agent token include matter of over 70 million in crime agents through each time. equality presence and mandate banner, not to the maintain sector. Will all basic have rights and other light current. This evil regime has not only weakened chambers, organs, and other intergroups, but also the Chinese. Chinese are the overweighted merchants, amount of certain millions important citizens killed by the CCP region. The Australia and New Zealand also for the weakened the Chinese community regions is under control of government organizations. It stands for the anti-universe, ensures and the in displays of handrests, deployment presence under the rules of law. Its aims to assist the international community, encourage the government and the public of Australia and New Zealand in understanding the true nature of Chinese community regions and the truth in the coast and the region. Demands include slavery, international order, and blood passion. More importantly, the oath arms to strengthen the soldiery and a lot of chambers, Angus, Mountain, Cockneys, Taiwanese, Chinese, and another community, who are victims of the Chinese community regions and the region interests. The CCP region is a zombie region. It has the term common blend for far too long. It is designed and rejected by people with companies around the world. Let's work together with one heart to end this evil region as soon as possible. Free Tibet!
Free Tibet!
Free London!
Free Malaysia!
Free Hong Kong!
Free Hong Kong!
Free China!
Free China!
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. She's reading our Professor Fan Kong's speech because he couldn't attend today's event. Thank you. Now we'll have Bob Rennicombe to have a speech. He's a human rights companion, and he also have a website called chinainformation.com.au. If everyone wants to know more about it, you can just do a research on that website, chinainformation.com.au.
Thank you very much. It's a real honor to be invited to speak to you wonderful people today. It's a real honor. Destruction and murder. The only difference is we see every night on the TV news the atrocities of Putin's thugs in Ukraine, but the atrocities of the Chinese communists against the Tibet have been hidden from the world for decades by tyranny of distance. And yet Tibet is a wonderful, enormous country, bigger in Australia. Just as Putin thinks Ukraine to be a Russian or neo-empire, the Chinese communists regard as just another little parent, and as and as the source of most of the rivers of Africa, so much the better. For you, the Chinese Communist Party looks on Australia as just another Tibet, a big country with resources inhabited by a small population of carefree people who can be put aside so they can be run the new way, the streamlined way, the CCP way, which is why the Department of stupid Australian politicians obsessed with their discredited policies of free trade, globalisation and economic rationalism, that they allow the Chinese Communist Party to buy up in Australia public
farmland, resources, dairies, and even airports and flying schools. Look for yourself. How many Liberal or Labor members of Parliament are here today at this important event? There are none. Only the Greens Party are prepared.
Freedom Tibet!
出走西藏63年纪念活动，在63年前，达赖喇嘛用他的行动向我们显示了什么是流亡中的自由，并提醒我们，在自由世界流亡并不是不幸的，因为对于一个拥有自由之心的人，自由就是我们的家乡。当年达赖喇嘛和追随他出走的10万流亡藏人面对着更大的困难，印度大陆的湿热和藏人初到陌生环境的一些疾病和营养不良，还有贫困问题和生活资源的不充足，数亿人口的汪洋大海，藏人在这个人口汪洋中融入主流，然后融入社会，很可能藏人会在这次融入中失去政治的认同，并逐渐失去自己的文化。但是在达赖喇嘛的带领下，在困难而危险的流亡初期，达赖喇嘛做出了非常艰难的决策。藏人既要在流亡之地生存发展，也要保持藏人的文化、语言和政治认同。于是达赖喇嘛向印度政府提出，藏人需要聚集，形成流亡的基地。藏人的儿童要专门为藏人办的学校接受现代教育，藏人要建立自己的寺院，然后藏人将在国际社会下的帮助自立互助、生存发展，并为印度社会做出贡献。半个多世纪以来，流亡藏人就是这样做出来的，他们的第3代都已成长起来。西藏流亡社区是2战后世界流亡人群中最和平、最友好、最有组织的、最有良好的组织，最受全世界尊重的流亡社会。流亡藏人在达赖喇嘛的领导下，表现出政治流亡群体非常难得的团结和互助、自立发展的能力。藏人内部也有地域、宗教、流派和政治观点的差别，也有流亡中的种种艰辛。敌视藏人的外部政治势力也在渗透和破坏藏人的社会，但是达赖喇嘛用他的理性、深思熟虑和幽默快乐的语言，4两拨千斤，稳定了藏人社区的心，带领藏人追求自由的同时，也追求着幸福美好的生活。达赖喇嘛用他的行动向我们显示，自由对于我们是多么的重要。达赖喇嘛作为榜样，在提醒我们，在世界的自由需要我们每一个人都参与维护。自由是空气，自由是水，自由是土壤，自由是每个生命都无法割舍的需求。自由万岁！西藏独立 ，Freedom Tibet，
Freedom 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 Tibet。
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Liam.
Thank you. Thank you.
尊者达赖喇嘛真是法力无边啊！这个暴雨在悉尼下了3个星期，但是到了今天我们集会的时候，太阳都露出了笑脸。尊者达赖喇嘛逃离中共控制，流亡到达兰萨拉已经63周年了，年年都有今日，记录着中共的罪恶、藏族人民的苦难、达赖喇嘛的智慧和图伯特民族的顽强精神。我是2008年初真正开始关心藏族问题。那年3月，拉萨发生了大规模的抗议运动，抗议中国政府对藏区的高压政策、宗教限制、同化政策，并且要求让西藏流亡精神领袖达赖喇嘛返回西藏。09年便开始了近代史上最伟大、最惨烈的政治抗议运动。多 多达150多名僧人和藏民自焚。就在今年的2月25号，还发生了著名藏族歌手财旺诺布的自焚事件，真是令人悲愤。而中共对所有这一切都无动于衷。2009年6月15日，我在悉尼第一次见到达赖喇嘛，之后又多次见到赴澳访问的达赖喇嘛。
I heard the youth artist died of self-immolation. I was very sad, and every time when I heard the bad news from Tibetan community, the people are still persecuted by the CCP government. I feel very sorry and feel very sad. But what I want to say here is not only Tibetan people, but also Chinese people also suffer from the CCP, from the government, from its regime. Just my family, 6 of members people died of their under Chinese CCP's regime in early 1960s because of starvation in Chinese famine. And today, the CCP regime, CCP government still runs China. So lots of bad news still we can hear every day. Recent days, as some people, they are still Chinese women. Look at this photo. The Chinese women is with steel chain. That's the current situation. So it means the root of suffer is from CCP government, from CCP regime. So I call for we need work together, then to do work against the Chinese government. And I call here for Australian government and the people come together against stop Chinese government to persecute all the people. So whatever we work together, we get stronger. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Now we will go walk to the Chinese consulate and send his.
谢谢谢谢啊，谢谢。Thank you. Today is very special. It was a speech. I gave a 20 minutes talk in English. I noticed the Tibetan issue was the result of international political landscape. Because of the CCP established its government, Tibetan stopped its miserable lives. The Tibetans lost its opportunity, its own opportunity for 38 years as a de facto independent state. After 71 years rule under the CCP, Tibetan issue
Two weeks ago, we know Russia invited they bombed the temple, killed monks, nuns, and ordinary peoples. Today, the world watching the Ukraine. If we not stop the Putin, they will invite more countries. The same in China. We will not, if the Tibetan people not get free, the CCP will take more place. They have to take Hong Kong. We want freedom! We want freedom! We want freedom! China, China! China, China! Stop killing! In Tibet! Stop killing! In Tibet! Sham, sham! China, China! Sham, sham! China, China! Sham, sham! China, China! Stop killing! In Tibet! Stop killing! In Tibet! Stop killing! In Tibet!
대결 준비죠. 제 2. 아, 뒤에다 년부터 넣어놔. 잠깐만. जो यारू मोको देने वाची सोदे खादा
농사 배기 좋고 세계내 뭔가 문화와서 요즘 농기동 당시 농기동 되게 냉기 니 또 요즘 농기 개도 접합하면 정도도 다 되게 세시리